Hello and welcome to Cake. Today I'm making a spooky looking Black Forest cake. Let's jump right to this recipe. This cake is primarily made of 4 layers of a European chocolate sponge cake, which I've split into 4 layers. I made a detailed video creating this cake, but I'll briefly review it again here. I'm using 2.5 cups of flour, half a cup of unsweetened cocoa powder, 1¼ cups of sugar and a pack of vanilla sugar, 6 eggs, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and a dash of salt. I begin by whisking together the eggs and the sugar and beating it for 15 minutes until it's tripled in volume. In the meantime, I combine all the dry ingredients together and then gently fold those into the egg batter. I divide this batter between 2 8-inch cake pans, which I've prepared with parchment paper, and then these are going to go into a preheated oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 28 minutes. I'm going to let them cool completely for about an hour, and in the meantime I'll prepare the rest of the ingredients. For the Chantilly cream, I use 3 teaspoons of agar, 3 1/3 cups of heavy cream at 35% fat content, and 1/3 cup of sugar. I'm going to put 3/4 of a cup of the heavy cream to the side and combine that with the agar and bring it to a boil. The remainder of the heavy cream I'm going to beat until it gets stiff. For those who are not familiar with agar is just a plant-based gelatin. You're welcome to swap this for a standard gelatin. And the reason I'm adding this is because Chantilly cream tends to become more watery over time, and to prevent that from happening, I'm adding this gelatin. The heavy cream with the agar has now come to a boil, and now I'm going to try to reduce the temperature by pouring it into a cold bowl and then putting in about 2 to 3 tablespoons of the beaten heavy cream into it to just bring it to room temperature as fast as possible. Then this is going to go into the remainder of the heavy cream, and I'm going to let it beat for another 30 seconds to a minute until it's really firm. And I'm going to put it in the fridge for about 10 minutes until I'm ready with the rest of the ingredients. For the filling and decoration, I'm using tart pitted cherries that come in a glass jar with some water or some fruit juice. I'm going to separate the fruit juice, but I'm going to keep it to moisten the cake layers with it later. My cake layers have completely cooled. I'm going to split each in half so I have 4 layers of chocolate sponge cake. Now I'm ready for the assembly. So I'm going to apply a generous amount of the cherry fruit juice to each layer of the cake. I'm going to wrap this entire thing with an adjustable cake pan or cake frame. Then for the first layer, I add about 3 tablespoons of the Chantilly cream and put in about half of the pitted cherries. Top that with a little bit more heavy cream to layer it off or to just make it even. Then I'm going to apply the second layer of sponge cake on top and moisten it generously. On this layer, I'm only going to add about 3 tablespoons of Chantilly cream, so no cherries. The next layer, again, I'm going to moisten this generously. And now we're going to repeat the process with the cherries. So 3 tablespoons of Chantilly cream, about the remainder of the cherries, but I'm going to put aside about 15 pieces for the decoration later. On the final layer of the sponge cake, I'm just going to apply 1 tablespoon of Chantilly cream, so a really thin layer. Then this cake is going to go into the fridge for at least 4 hours or best overnight. I have about 7 to 8 tablespoons of the Chantilly cream left over. This is going to go into the fridge overnight as well. Then for the decoration, I'm using 400 grams of bittersweet chocolate. I'm going to let it melt over a water bath. About 1/3 of it is going to be unmelted, but this is going to melt while I'm stirring the entire thing for just a couple minutes. Then I'm going to distribute this chocolate on a piece of parchment paper, and it's about 15 by 16 inches wide. And by the way, in case I have not mentioned up until now, you can find the exact recipe in grams and cup measurements in the link below. I'm going to try to keep a 1-inch edge on each side to make sure that the chocolate just doesn't pour out when I'm rolling this entire thing. I'm going to lay another parchment paper on top of the chocolate, and now I'm ready to roll this. Initially, I thought I had to make perfectly circular rolls out of this, but that's actually not good. You kind of want some flatter pieces because the flat pieces are going to attach to the cake much easier. I've laid this on a cutting board, and now this is going to go into the fridge for exactly 2 hours. After 2 hours, I'm going to unroll it and try to keep the pieces as large as possible. Then I'm going to put all the chocolate pieces on a flat plate and place it back in the fridge. The next morning, I'm ready to unwrap my cake, which looks like this. Perfect. I'm going to apply a very thin layer of the heavy whipped cream on the edge of the cake because this is going to give the chocolate pieces something to stick to. Again, I'm going to try to use no more than 2 tablespoons of the Chantilly cream. These are the chocolate pieces. I'm just going to gently press them against the cake and they're going to attach perfectly fine. I'm going to go around the cake and then I'm pretty much almost done with decorating this cake. I have some chocolate pieces left over. I'm going to cut these into small chunks to decorate the top of the cake with later on. Some of the heavy cream, about 4 to 5 tablespoons, is also left over, and this was in the fridge overnight, so it's now nice and firm and perfect for piping. So I'm going to put it in a pastry bag, and I'm using a Wilton 1M tip for this. And then I'm ready to decorate the cake with a tip. This is my favorite part of decorating a cake. Then I'm going to distribute the small chocolate pieces on top of the cake. I had put a couple of cherries aside to garnish the cake with. I'm going to cherry pick the ones that are prettiest to look at, so the ones that are most round. I'm going to tap them dry because they have a little bit of excess liquid, and then just put them on top of the piped heavy cream. And then I'm done. I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. Let me know by giving this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more delicious recipes and creative ideas. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.